Welcome back to What's on the MCAT. I'm Matt, and today we're going to be talking about Section 3 of the Biology and Biochemistry section on the MCAT. Bio and Biochemistry Foundational Concept 3. Complex systems of tissues and organs sense the internal and external environment of multicellular organisms, and through integrated functioning, maintain a stable internal environment. As a result of the integration of a number of highly specialized organ systems, complex living things are able to maintain homeostasis while adapting to a constantly changing environment and participating in growth and reproduction. The interactions of these organ systems involve complex regulatory mechanisms that help maintain a dynamic and healthy equilibrium regardless of the organ system's current state and environment. Category 3A focuses on the structure and functions of the nervous and endocrine systems and the ways the systems work together to coordinate the responses of other body systems to both external and internal stimuli. Category 3B focuses on the structure and functions of the organ systems, circulatory, respiratory, digestive, immune, lymphatic, muscular, skeletal, and reproductive, and the ways these systems interact to fulfill their concerted roles in the maintenance and continuance of the living organism. With these building blocks, medical students will be able to learn how the body responds to internal and external stimuli to support homeostasis and the ability to reproduce. Section 3A, Structure and Functions of the Nervous and Endocrine Systems and Ways These Systems Coordinate the organ systems. The nervous and endocrine systems work together to detect external and internal signals, transmit and integrate information, and maintain homeostasis. They do all this by producing appropriate responses to internal and external cues and stressors. The integration of these systems, both with one another and with the other organ systems, ultimately results in the successful and adaptive behaviors that allow for the propagation of the species. Animals have evolved a nervous system that senses and processes internal and external information used to facilitate and enhance survival, growth, and reproduction. The nervous system interfaces with sensory and internal body systems to coordinate physiological and behavioral responses ranging from simple movements and small metabolic changes to long-distance migrations and social interactions. The physiological processes for nerve signal generation and propagation involve specialized membranes with associated proteins that respond to ligands and/or electrical field changes, signaling molecules, and by extension, the establishment and replenishment of ionic electrochemical gradients requiring ATP. The endocrine system of animals has changed over time to produce chemical signals that function internally to regulate stress responses, reproduction, development, energy metabolism, growth, and various individual and interactive behaviors. The integrated contributions of the nervous and endocrine systems to bodily functions are exemplified by the process whereby the signaling of neurons regulates hormone release and by the targeting of membrane or nuclear receptors on neurons by circulating hormones. The content in this category covers the structure, function, and basic aspects of nervous and endocrine systems and their integration. The structure and function of nerve cells is also included in this category. Section 3A, subtopic list. Nervous system, structure, and function. Major functions: high-level control and integration of body systems, adaptive capability to external influences, organization of vertebrate nervous system, sensor and effector neurons, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, antagonistic control, reflexes, feedback loop, reflex arc, role of spinal cord and supraspinal circuits, integration with endocrine system, feedback control, nerve cell, cell body, site of nucleus, organelles, dendrites, branched extensions of cell body, axon, structure and function, myelin sheath, Schwann cells, insulation of axon, nodes of Ranvier, propagation of nerve impulse along axon, synapse, site of impulse propagation between cells, synaptic activity, transmitter molecules, resting potential, electrochemical gradient, action potential, threshold, all or none, sodium-potassium pump, excitatory and inhibitory nerve fibers, summation, frequency of firing, glial cells, and neuroglia. Electrochemistry, concentration cell, direction of electron flow, Nernst equation, biosignaling, gated ion channels, voltage-gated, ligand-gated, receptor enzymes, G-protein coupled receptors, lipids, description, structure, steroids, terpenes and terpenoids, endocrine system, hormones and their sources, function of endocrine system, specific chemical control at cell, tissue, and organ level, definitions of endocrine gland, hormone, Major endocrine glands, names, locations, and products, major types of hormones, neuroendocrinology, relation between neurons and hormonal systems, endocrine systems, mechanisms of hormone action, cellular mechanisms of hormone action, transport of hormones, blood supply, specificity of hormones, target tissue, integration with nervous system, feedback control, and regulation by second messengers. Section 3B, structure and integrative functions of the main organ systems. Animals use a number of highly organized and integrated organ systems to carry out the necessary functions associated with maintaining life processes. Within the body, no organ system is an island. Interactions and coordination between organ systems allow organisms to engage in the processes necessary to sustain life. For example, the organs and structures of the circulatory system carry out a number of functions, such as transporting nutrients absorbed in the digestive system, gases absorbed from the respiratory system and muscle tissue, hormones secreted from the endocrine system, blood cells produced in bone marrow to and from cells in the body to help fight disease. The content in this category covers the structure and function of the major organ systems of the body, including respiratory, circulatory, lymphatic, immune, digestive, excretory, reproductive, muscle, skeletal, and skin systems. Also covered in this category is the integration of these systems and their control and coordination by the endocrine and nervous systems. Subtopics for Section 3B. Respiratory system. General function, gas exchange, thermoregulation, protection against disease, particulate matter, structure of lungs and alveoli, breathing mechanisms, diaphragm, rib cage, differential pressure, resiliency and surface tension effects, thermoregulation, nasal and tracheal capillary beds, evaporation, panting, particulate filtration, nasal hairs, mucus cilia systems in the lungs, alveolar gas exchange, diffusion, differential partial pressure, Henry's law, pH control, regulation by nervous system, CO2 sensitivity, circulatory system, functions, circulation of oxygen, nutrients, hormones, ions, and fluids, removal of metabolic waste, role in thermoregulation, four-chambered heart, structure and function, endothelial cells, systolic and diastolic pressure, pulmonary and systemic circulation, arterial and venous systems, arteries, arterioles, venules, veins, structural and functional differences, pressure and flow characteristics, capillary beds, mechanisms of gas and solute exchange, mechanisms of heat exchange, source of peripheral resistance, composition of blood, plasma, chemicals, blood cells, erythrocyte production and destruction, spleen, bone marrow, regulation of plasma volume, coagulation, clotting mechanisms, oxygen transport by blood, hemoglobin, hematocrit, oxygen content, oxygen affinity, carbon dioxide transport and level in blood, nervous and endocrine control, lymphatic system, structure of lymphatic system, major functions, equalization of fluid distribution, transport of proteins and large glycerides, production of lymphocytes involved in immune reactions, return of materials to the blood, immune system, innate nonspecific versus adaptive specific immunity, adaptive immune system cells, T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, innate immune system cells, macrophages, phagocytes, tissues, bone marrow, spleen, thymus, lymph nodes, concept of antigen and antibody, antigen presentation, clonal selection, antigen antibody recognition, structure of antibody molecule, recognition of self versus non-self in autoimmune diseases, major histocompatibility complex, digestive system, ingestion, saliva is lubrication and sources of enzymes, ingestion, esophagus transport function, stomach, storage and churning of food, low pH, gastric juice, mucal protection against self-destruction, production of digestive enzymes, site of digestion, structure, liver, structural relationship of the liver within the gastrointestinal system, production of bile, role in blood glucose regulation, detoxification, bile, storage in gallbladder, function, pancreas, production of enzymes, transport of enzymes to the small intestine, absorption of food molecules and water, function and structure of villi, production of enzymes, site of digestion, neutralization of stomach acid, structure, anatomic subdivisions, large intestine, absorption of water, bacterial flora, structure, gross anatomy, rectum, storage and elimination of waste and feces, muscular control and peristalsis, endocrine control, hormones, target tissue, nervous control, the enteric nervous system, excretory system, roles in homeostasis, blood pressure, osmoregulation, acid-base balance, removal of soluble nitrogenous waste, kidney structure, cortex, medulla, nephron structure, glomerulus, Bowman's capsule, proximal tubule, loop of Henle, distal tubule, collecting duct, formation of urine, glomerular filtration, secretion and reabsorption of solutes, concentration of urine, countercurrent multiplier mechanism, storage and elimination, ureter, bladder, urethra, osmoregulation, capillary reabsorption of H2O, amino acids, glucose, ions, muscular control, sphincter muscle, reproductive system, male and female reproductive structures and their functions, gonads, genitalia, differences between male and female structures, hormonal control of reproduction, male and female sexual development, female reproductive cycle, pregnancy, parturition, lactation, integration with nervous control, muscle system, important functions, support, mobility, peripheral circulatory assistance, thermoregulation, shivering reflex, structure and three basic muscle types, striated, smooth, and cardiac, muscle structure and control of contraction, T-tubule system, contractile apparatus, sarcoplasmic reticulum, fiber type, contractile velocity of different muscle types, regulation of cardiac muscle contraction, oxygen debt, fatigue, nervous control, motor neurons, neuromuscular junction, motor end plates, sympathetic and parasympathetic innervation, voluntary and involuntary muscles, specialized cell, muscle cell, structural characteristic of striated, smooth, and cardiac muscle, abundant mitochondria and red muscle cells, ATP source, organization of contractile elements, actin and myosin filaments, cross bridges, sliding filament models, sarcomeres, I and A bands, Menzi lines, H zone, presence of troponin and tropomyosin, calcium regulation and contraction, skeletal system, functions, structural rigidity and support, calcium storage, physical protection, skeletal structure, specialization of bone types, structures, joint structures, endoskeleton versus exoskeleton, bone structures, calcium protein matrix, cellular composition of bone, cartilage, structure and function, ligaments, tendons, endocrine system, skin system, structure, layer differentiation, cell types, relatively impermeable to water, functions in homeostasis and osmoregulation, functions in thermoregulation, hair, erectile musculature, fat layer for insulation, sweat glands like location in dermis, vasoconstriction and vasodilation in surface capillaries, physical protection, nails, calluses, hair, protection against abrasion, disease, organisms, hormonal control, sweating, vasodilation, and vasoconstriction. That concludes the bio and biochemistry section topic list of the MCAT. Join us next time for the question pack for the AMC What's on the MCAT. I'm Matt in Medicine, and we'll be doing practice questions from this section, and I hope to see you in the rest of our series on What's on the MCAT.